Okay, hello and welcome to our fourth show and tell of the Alpha for our Improving Local Authority Building Control Services project. I'm Sarah and I work at Central Building Control in the technical support team. Today the team are in Lichfield, where Central are hosting today's workshop, which will kick off after this show and tell. The project is a continuation of the discovery phase of the work, where findings included issues with the current systems BC teams use, data standards and low-hanging fruit wins with improved template, and looking at how we can better keep our customers informed. Today, the agenda is analysis of initial notices, an update from our meeting with the NHBC. Then we have a look at some of the cost analysis the team have been doing, updates by our R&D team at Unboxed, and a look at some early phototyping. So now we'll hand over to Dorian from Lambeth, who will be taking us through some analysis that he's done on this.
Thanks, Sarah. So I did some analysis on initial notices that were submitted to Lambeth from registered building control approvers. So we took a random sample of 30 submissions, and I looked across a number of criteria just to see how they compared with each other. The first thing I looked at was the number of pages in a typical submission, and most submissions were between 3 and 4 pages. So 26 out of 30. There was 2 submissions with 2 pages and 2 submissions with 5 pages. So this kind of showed that the 3 to 4 page mark was fairly consistent across those 30 submissions. The next thing that I looked into was the style and the layout. So some submissions had bullet points and lists, other submissions had tables. Some used a combination of the two, and others also had cover letters. So they weren't consistent in their approach. Some also used strike-through text to indicate where something wasn't relevant. And in other submissions, they used bold text to indicate where something was relevant. So again, an inconsistency there. Also in some submissions, you had the RBCA sign the form on behalf of the person carrying out the work. So in terms of ease of viewing, I looked at this and gave a score between 1 and 4, where 1 was considered easiest to view. Most of the submissions were easy to view, in my view, but some were easier than others, although this is a subjective view. Generally speaking, the ones in tabular format were easier to view, in my opinion. And there were 7 submissions that I scored a 1 for, and all of those were tabular submissions. There were 17 submissions that I scored a 2 for. Okay, so moving on to the second slide. So for this, I did a simple risk assessment where I looked at the number of sections within the submissions. So in the Form 1 guidance, there are 11 sections. For 12 of the submissions, these had 11 sections, but there were 2 that had fewer than that, and there were also a number that had more sections. However, what I want to point out is that although there might have been different numbering in terms of the number of sections, it didn't necessarily mean that there was missing information, because in some cases you had subsections within a submission. So just from my checks, whilst there might be a higher risk if a submission did not follow the 11 sections of the Form 1 guidance, it didn't necessarily mean that there would be missing information, although I felt it could still present a risk because it didn't follow the exact numbering. So in terms of Form 1 structure and sections, there were 12 in total that had the same numbering and 18 that had different numbering. So the overall conclusion was that greater variation increases inconsistency and alignment risk. So I guess from my perspective, having a IN form that had 11 sections in a tabular format was easiest to view and to understand. And I'll pass over to Jordan next.
Thanks, Dorian. Just before you jump in there, Jordan, with the slide on the NHBC, that's some really interesting analysis you shared with us there, Dorian. We can see that there are opportunities if we could make more consistent submissions, that it would be easier for building control services to process those, and inevitably there'd be savings there. So a really good, interesting piece of analysis that we want to look at further as part of our low-hanging fruit work stream. Jordan, over to you on NHBC.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm just going to be presenting a little bit about a partnership that we've been developing with the NHBC. So we found out through discovery that they have been working on their own back office system to replace their legacy system, which I believe is about 15 years out of date. We wanted to collaborate on their experience with developing a back office system and create a partnership in how we can learn from their experience and how they can learn from our experience going forward. We've noticed that they're going to be looking to deliver their first stage of delivery in April 2027. And we're going to be keen to follow up this partnership ongoing in this project and in the future, and how we can really work to create a better back office system through this project, and also learn from their strengths and their experience in developing their own. Part of that is we're going to be sharing UR callouts for our research and also their own by using collaborated media links such as LinkedIn and email. Next up, I'll be passing to Dalil to look at the cost of maintaining back office systems.
Yeah, so I will be presenting a couple of slides about the cost that it's costing us in terms of maintaining the back office system for building control, specifically for building control. So in my role is specifically to support town planning and building control. Part of it go for supporting building control. So I've looked into in 1 year long of requests that I received from building control officers in Lambeth. I managed to find around 40 requests received from the building control team. They are system requests through submitted forms, or they are emails related. And also we had around 4 system updates during that year. On average, if we allocate 4 hours per request, this is equivalent to 176 hours of IT effort to support the building control team, which equivalent to 25 working days, which is equivalent to a month and a half. And in total, in terms of full-time equivalent person, that's around a month of their role. Also, I've done analysis for building for full plans application at Lambeth. I will show you some numbers at the second at the next slide. So across the past 5 financial years, we receive around 3,000 applications. The numbers here on the first table on the left per year. So in terms of money, the second table shows how much these applications generated income. It's around 2.7 million. And we see a number of applications. There's a sharp increase in 2022-23, but the income comparatively was steadier. The latest period show mid-range income despite lower volumes, which was exploring fee mix and the case complexity in these years. In my third table here, I'm showing what type of building control application that we received during this period. The majority of them in our back office system being categorized as other work full plan. But in my next slide, I will show you we did further analysis for these applications. So as I said, there are around 3,000 applications. We went reading the description of each application wasn't possible, so we used AI to do some analysis of these applications by reading the description. We see that most full plan activity is compliance land around fire safety maybe, and classic home improvement is present, but it's modest. We see here also energy upgrade are barely showing up. So it suggests that there might be opportunity here for further investigation. And now I will pass it over to our partner, Unboxed.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so what have we been doing in the last sprint? So user research. It's been a quieter sprint for research while we've been working on recruitment to try and get some more principal designers and contractors. But we did have two conversations, one with an architect who focuses on commercial projects and a principal contractor who's a domestic builder. What we've learnt through these interviews, it really has reinforced some of the key themes that we've been hearing over the last month or so, particularly around transparency, that need to know what is going on in the process, particularly for the principal contractor or the project manager, who need to keep track of inspections and know what's happened and what's going to happen next. But also speaking to the architect, there was a need to have that overview of work, just so they're aware of what's happening in case they do need to be involved at that later stage. We also heard from these interviews the frustrations of a site being inspected and approved verbally, but once covered up, the council requested to see it again because allegedly they failed to take photos or a file or report. But it led to conversations around that need to see what has gone on at the time, so have that record available to them. There's also demand for an audit trail. We have been showing users the customer portal prototype that we showed you in the last show and tell, and we've had some great feedback from that. And they're keen to see that audit trail, to see what has happened, being able to access documents at a given time, say after an inspection, being able to see what has happened, and gaining access to that final inspection report, having that all in one place. They felt like the portal could really make everything documented and in plain sight, and they really saw the value of having that sort of shared documentation history with surveyors. But during the last couple of weeks, we've been really working on personas. So we had some from Discovery, which were really useful, and we've created some extra ones, and we've also been able to just add detail to these using the information that we found from our research to really sort of empathise with the users and their needs, motivations and goals. Again, just a bit of an appeal for help with recruitment. We're finding the principal contractors and designers a little harder as a user group to gain access to, particularly the contractors. So if there's any help you can give with putting us in touch with those user groups, please do get in touch with us. We're also reaching out to technical support officers and surveyors for testing. We have the prototype ready to go to test with them. So again, if you want to get involved, please do get in touch. Right, the prototype demo.
You'll have seen in our last show and tell, the one we had in between workshops, that I demoed a version of this which was very much a prototype, but it was not a functional prototype. In the time since then, I have actually moved this on to create a prototype which people can actually log in and play with. So anyone who would like the login details, this allows you to create a very, very, very basic building application, attach documents and do some back-end processing. So it's built very much around the workflow that we have found that works for BOPs. So it will allow you to do things like check documents that have been submitted. You'll see that we're using the GovUK styles for consistency, accessibility, and so on. So this will allow you to go to each individual document. If it's an image, it will give you a preview and so on, and tag these up for what types of things they are. Add the document references and mark the document as valid, and then you'll see that that step is checked off. to validate for missing documents. Actually, if I go back to this page, you can see now that it will show you that you've checked this document, but you haven't checked that document, so that you can keep track of what's been checked and what hasn't. You can check for missing documents if in this case you're satisfied that everything is there and has been tagged. You can save that and mark that as complete, and you'll see that in the task list this now works to show you that those tasks are already done. If you want to check the digital red line boundary, you can do that, mark that as valid. I've also created, which I'll show you in a minute, an API that allows you to submit pretend applications. It's worth saying, if you're playing with this, please do not enter any real data of any real building applications. This is very much a demo version only. I've added a function to allow you to submit without a red line location and then draw the red line location, which is saved on the map. So people like Jordan who've used BOPs will be familiar with that flow, and you can test that out. You can check the description. I'm just assuming in this case everything here is valid. You can calculate the fee. In further iterations, this would go to the applicant, obviously, and they would then be able to pay, assuming that they've paid the fee, that with all the details that come through from your payments team would come through here. You'd be able to validate that yes or no and check that that's been paid. We've now got a prototype for the next steps of the design check. So one of my next tasks, along with providing functional prototype for the customer portal, which you've been shown, I'll be working on that next, and also the prototype for the design checks. And for anyone who wants to experiment with this hands-on, actually we haven't saved the details on Dawn's, sorry, that you can actually go to the API. I can show you in downtime later on my laptop and submit applications. Something else that I've worked on from a tech point of view, actually maybe I don't need to show this, it's in the slides. You can click on this if you're interested. I showed you before in the last show and tell that we had before we used to have a folder on GitHub that was all about data standards. Now we have, oh thanks Dawn, now we have a separate repository on GitHub which is open, and this is a deliberate choice so that we can actually ask anyone who's interested in building control data standards to review the standards that are in this repository, to comment and make suggestions and have input. So anyone in the room who wants to have input into this, this would be fantastic. I also went to a meeting of the ODP Digital Data Standards group last week. There are a couple of people in the room, I think, who were here, who were there as well, did a call out and actually had some good feedback for people who I'm going to have follow-up calls with to talk about data standards. So those are the two parallel work streams that I've been working on.
Okay, so what's next? Upcoming in the next sprint, we're going to be doing some testing sessions with building control staff. We're going to be showing them the prototype. We're going to be exploring some other building control journeys. Also, we're going to have, as Rhian was mentioning, we're going to have some conversations around the planning portal and with Dorset Council around data standards and developing the coded prototype for the customer portal. And
okay, thanks Dawn. Yeah, so Dawn's just gone over there. We're also going to be hoping to recruit, we'll have our digital coordinator for the project picked up there. I just wanted to pick up on the standards repository. There may be some people who don't actually understand how to look at that. So what we might do is organise a session in the coming weeks, probably an online session for anyone who's watched this show and tell, or anyone, any of the partners, to have a session with Dawn where you can Rianne, sorry, where you can take people through how do you actually look at that so that they can actually comment on those standards, because I think that will be a really, you know, a good one to push along. So, and just to call out again, anyone that's watching this, we are, as we said, we're looking for those principal officer roles. We're looking for tech support in building control. I know we've got Sarah in the room today, so we will be hooking up with you on that. To get involved in that user research interview. So if you are interested, please do contact us. You can always contact us at digital building control at lambeth.gov.uk, or you can contact via other links that you might see on LinkedIn. So that's it for this show and tell. We're about to hit off onto our number 4 workshop, and thanks very much for watching, and we'll be updating you soon next time. All right, bye bye.